There's a hot new vegan brand on the scene, but then it fails, normally in epic proportions. But I'll give you one number to explain what's going wrong, and then 4 steps to hopefully fix it. It's day 12, and if you're new here, I'm Craig Dew, and 0 to 1 million follows the business growth of Rev Levers and the vegan brands we help with education-based branding. So the one number is 1%, and that's the approximate number of vegans there are in the US right now. Various studies will give you different numbers, but let's go with 1% to make it nice and round. If you talk to vegans and vegan sources, they often boost this number up, but I find that like 1-2% is probably more accurate. That translates to about 3 million people. And so let's compare that to other products or markets that are comparable, basically. And so gluten-free, 1% of the population is celiac, which means they can't have gluten at all. However, 6% of them are sensitive to gluten, so that kind of gives us about 20 million people in that group already that are gluten-free. But wait, there's more. And so there's 20 to 25% of people who avoid gluten for perceived health benefits and that kind of thing. So that takes the number up to a whopping 92 million, about 27% of the population. And then gluten-free people don't have their own restaurants. So have you ever had a friend go, let's go to the fully gluten-free restaurant? Like, it doesn't exist. And there's big brands where they can just go and make a gluten-free option of the product, and no one gets really upset when they have fake bread. Oh my God. And so it's a different market, and it's also filled with a lot more people that want to be gluten-free compared to vegan, where we've only got 3 million people. And so let's take that 1% to the local market. Compared to popular food groups in a supermarket, right? Because you get a brand and it can do well maybe online going straight to vegans, but then suddenly you have to go into stores and it's a whole different picture. And this is why. So in a supermarket, let's say like 5% of people are vegetarian as well. That's kind of the rough numbers that Google Gemini has given me. And so we'll say 94% of the people are willing to eat meat. So if you're selling chicken, then, real chicken, 94% of people are gonna pick that up and have it. So that's why a supermarket can have 5 to 10 brands of chicken. Like if you think about, they've got 10 brands, that's almost 10% of all the people that can go into the supermarket are gonna be able to pick a different brand of chicken, whether it's special this or organic or free range and all that kind of jazz that they like to put on the packaging. And so if you're going with a vegan product and you've only got 1% of those people that walk into that possible supermarket, and it could be a little bit larger or smaller depending where that supermarket is or that store is, you've really got like one brand on the shelf that's going to be really successful. If you have 2 or 3 or 5 brands, like it's getting ridiculous, there's not enough demand to support all those. So it's really important, if you are in a supermarket with that, to be the category leader in that brand and try to make sure that there aren't anyone else competing with you. Otherwise, all the products are going to fail. So that's your kind of one interesting step, is to get category leadership. And if you're going to go create a product and someone's already doing it, don't just make a better vegan chicken. Like if it's been done, just if the vegan chicken box is ticked, then move on to something else that's new and different, where you actually have a chance of being the leader in that category without competing for the scraps just because you made it a little bit better or tastes a little bit different or whatever. Okay, and so here's the 4 steps on how to help your vegan brand succeed. First one, still focus on vegans in the beginning, right? And so they're the ideal target market, so that's who you want to go after, and you want to create a groundswell of customer advocates for your brand that are going to promote and talk about it and share it with other vegans and get the brand going. So that's the first step. And if you're going into stores, think about where the stores are that have more vegans in the local areas, like your vegan cities. Focus on those areas and try to get in there and make it work in those stores before you go out to random stores that might not have big vegan communities. But like, that's your starting point. And then number 2 is don't make the best vegan cookie. Like, you've got to make the best cookie. So if you want other people to eat it that aren't vegans, then you need to compete against all the other cookies out there and make something different for them. You just can't do the same stuff and put a vegan label on it and then expect it to take off. Like if you get there first and you make the first vegan cookie and you grab the category and you've made the chocolate chip vegan cookie, like no one's going to come in, and it's going to be hard for them to come and make a better chocolate chip vegan cookie. Like you should be dominating that leadership position and making it better and better and better. So really focus on the product, not just from a best vegan point of view, but from a best product point of view, so it really stands out. Number 3 is to be more successful in stores. Think about how you're going to cross the chasm and get into the baskets of the non-vegans, basically. And so that might mean that having big vegan signs, and it might help to start out with plant-based and vegan and all that on the packaging in the beginning when you're only talking to vegans. But at some point you've got to transition and get non-vegans to try it, and you can scare a lot of them off by having the vegan stuff on there. And so we have, like, there's an extra market of conscious consumers and that kind of thing, and vegetarians and stuff that you might be able to tap into and move as you move towards the mass market, which you're still not, we're not even close to getting to the chasm yet to get to the mass market. So we're a long way away from that as a vegan community. But how do you make it so it doesn't scare away everyone else? All right, people who are willing to try new things and do something different, and they might be like, you want to appeal to flexitarians and vegetarians, and don't be so snobbish and be like, this is only for vegans and it's the ultimate vegan product. And so think about it in terms of making it like accidentally vegan. So it's like, I'm going to make a product so good that it's going to compete in the mass market, and it's also vegan. And so you can still have your certified vegan label on it and all those kind of things, but it doesn't need to scream it to everyone. Your messaging might do that in the beginning, but if you want to make it all the way through to the mass market, then you're going to have to realize that they don't want a big vegan label on it. It's going to scare them away. And so that's a whole different video. And finally, number 4 is to be patient. All right. So getting consumers to change their eating habits that have been established for thousands of years takes time. People don't change on a dime. So we've seen a lot of like excited investors lately, and it's like plowing all this money after like Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat came in and got these big valuations, and people started pumping money in, and everyone was like, oh, this is the next gold rush. What they didn't consider is how small the vegan population is at the moment, and everyone's not going to switch to become vegan very, very quickly. Like, it's not a hot trend or fad or something that's going to take off really quickly. Getting people to change their eating habits is difficult. And so while there's more people being flexitarian and dabbling and trying these alternatives for mainly health reasons rather than ethical concerns and that kind of thing, which is another part of your marketing, it's not something that's just going to change overnight. Like a lot of other things, you'll hit a tipping point at some point, but we're still far away from that inflection point and tipping point that's going to get us towards the mass market. So you really have to be patient, hunker down. Investment is a double-edged sword. If you're getting pressure from investors to make a bunch of money for them back really, really quickly, like, they need to be in this for the long game. And the long game for an investor is like, oh, you mean 3 years? And it's like, no, like 10, 20, 50, 100 years. Like, we might not be alive as this change happens, if it happens the way that I believe it will, and eventually we'll all be eating a lot more plant-based, and it'll become more normalized. We might be living on Mars in order to do it, I don't know, but I don't know when it will take place, but it will take place eventually, and you got to play the long game in terms of that. So be very patient. So those 4 things, right? So focus on vegans in the beginning, make the best product, whether it's vegan or for non-vegans as well. Make sure that you're not being too proud of vegan and screaming it completely from the rooftops and turning off all the non-vegans in the process. Because when you start talking about people's food preferences, like, you really piss people off, as you can see by all the hate that is shared online and in person. And so, like, it's a subtle transition journey of tempting people over to the dark side or the light side, depending on what side you're on at the moment. And be patient. It's going to take a long time. And so, like, in summary, remember that vegans are just 1% of the population. So you're walking a tightrope, and any mistake can kill your business.